Hello, welcome everybody. We're so excited to see you jumping on, and we are so glad you're here. And as you are checking in here, I would love to know, we would love to know, what are the ages of your kids? Where are you from? And maybe you have 5 kids and you have one that you're really struggling with. You don't have to give the ages of all of them. Maybe it's the one you're struggling with the most and you want to share their age. So where are you from? What are you bringing here? We'd love to know.
I'm putting mine as well, by the way.
And make sure when you put in the chat, you put everyone. I want to make sure. Can you use the chat? Yes, it's there. Okay, we're going to wait for people to jump on. And we are going to be talking about how to help your teen and tweens develop effective study skills. So I am so excited that you're here. And as we're jumping on, when you do the chat, make sure that you put everyone, and Jen Keel is behind the scenes and she's going to be helping us with that. Okay, here we go. Great.
Hi, South Africa. Wow.
I know,
So
it's
cool.
12-year-old. Oh, it's exam time.
Yeah.
The UK. It's what? What is it there? 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. 14-year-old boy, Jennifer. Hi. Yeah. And Cynthia has 26, 23, 19, and 18. Hi, Catherine. Mom of a 15, 14, 12, and 12-year-old. She homeschools.
Moms of 4. Oh my gosh. Go, Catherine. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, South Africa, Cape Town, 8 p.m. We're so glad you're here, Kim. 17-year-old daughter. So I also think it would be helpful to hear what made you decide to sign up for this. When you saw it, maybe you got an email, maybe you saw it on social media. What made you go, oh yeah, I need that? That's always helpful.
I love the international audience too. I think it's really, it shows us that this is happening globally, that we all need support from each other. I love it.
Yeah, no matter where we live, it is. And we can all come together and support each other.
Yeah.
Suzanne, my 11-year-old does not want to study. Well, we're going to be talking. Cynthia is going to help us with that today. Joanne, kids hate doing homework. Megan, hi Megan. My son started high school this year and the game has changed. Things are harder and they need better skills.
Yeah.
Kim, yeah, says she has studied and actually hasn't. And then it's a huge fight and serious anxiety. Oh yeah, been there. Jennifer, too many nights struggling to manage workload and anticipate the amount of time assignments will take. Yeah, that's what the whole time management thing. You're going to be sharing with us, Cynthia, how to navigate time management.
I love Catherine hoping to walk away with 2 or 3 tidbits, and everyone should walk away maybe with more, and some that will work and some that won't work, but trial and error, always helps as well. So I want people to feel like they're walking away with things they can try immediately when their kids get home from school or when they wake up in the morning.
Like Kim, procrastination is huge. Yeah, Cara, agree with Megan and Kim. So both of my kids procrastinate.
Yeah.
Well, let's launch in. And I'll just start with kind of the little admin things. You are doing great, and just put it in for everyone. And what we're going to be doing is Cynthia will be answering some questions as we go through. However, because we have a good amount of people here, if we miss it, you want to put it in the Q&A if we, for some reason, miss it, because the last, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes, Cynthia is going to be answering questions. And so you're going to have time. I want you to know time to get those questions answered. So as they come up during this, you can put it in the Q&A or you can share it in the chat. Okay. We're going to try and do a little bit of both, but we'll definitely get to them in the Q&A at the end. And before I introduce Cynthia, I just want to tell you that I wanted to do this. First of all, I love her, and she's wrote, hopefully you came to the book club we did on her book, Parent Compass. This is so good. And then we're going to be, because this book too, I mean, how many books have you read, written? Like 20 books, but like amazing. But this is the one that she's going to be sharing with us today. But anyway, I really wanted to have her on here because I struggled so much, especially with my oldest daughter. And she has ADHD. She's now 34, and there's hope. They learn how to, she's learned how to manage it. But it was so frustrating because we were fighting all the time. It was like one of you said she procrastinated. She would tell me that she didn't have homework. And then I would look on Power School and she was missing all these assignments. And then I would try to get her to do her homework. She was not motivated. Then it would become, who's here? And here's, I don't care. So I was just I was scared because I also noticed that the more behind she got with her homework, it was like she would spiral into this overwhelm, anxiety, depression place. And so I was always kind of trying to stay ahead of that. And so it was very confusing for me. So if you're here and you're feeling confused about like, what do I do? Where do I step in? Where do I step back? How do I help them with study skills when they're not even wanting to do their homework? How do I help with that stress and anxiety? That is why I was like, when Cynthia mentioned this, like, hallelujah. Yes, we are doing this. So, so welcome. I want to share my personal story. Cynthia is going to share some of her stories throughout this workshop so that you can know if you're here and you're struggling with some of those things, you're not alone in this. So now, Cynthia, I'm going to introduce you. Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. So buckle up. She is a graduate of Stanford University. I'm so impressed by that. She's also an expert in the college admission process. She got her start in admission offices before opening a private study skills and college counseling business in Southern California, which she ran for over 15 years and has worked with thousands of teens over her 25 plus year career. Since 1996, Cynthia has written numerous books, including her most recent, which is The Parent Compass, Navigating Your Teen's Wellness and Academic Journey in Today's Competitive World. And this seriously is a compass. I can't recommend it enough. And she has also written many, many books, but this is another one, The Everything Guide to Study Skills and the Straight A Study Skills book. She is the parent, as she shared, to a high school senior, one college student, and two college graduates. One is a teacher. So welcome, Cynthia. Thank you so much. You're a friend, you're a colleague, and we're so grateful that you decided to join us.
I love this platform. I love you, Sheryl. I love, just what you're trying to do to help parents support one another, communicate with one another, feel less alone. And really, there is no perfect guidebook for how to do all of this. The parenting part, we try in the Parent Compass and all the parenting books out there, the study skills books, there are resources, but it's hard to sift through kind of all of that. And sometimes just the old school sitting down together and having a conversation, human to human, makes you feel less alone. And more than ever, parents really need each other. And what you're doing on your platform is remarkable, bringing parents together from all over the world, quite frankly. And I'm really grateful to be here. I'm such a fan. And we're fangirling over each other. So, yes, as you mentioned, I have these 4 kids of all different ages. And, each of them has sort of required not only different kinds of parenting skills, but also as I've grown as a parent, my perspectives has changed. And I think we all know that things that might work for one of our kids don't work for another one of our kids. And how do we reconcile that? And by the time I got to my 4th child, I thought I knew it all. And boy, every curveball I possibly could have been thrown happened on the 4th. So, I even throw my hands up in the air and attend parenting sessions and learn from other experts and read what's out there too. So I am not immune to, and I have made many mistakes also in my parenting journey that I continue to try to self-correct. So I just want everyone to know out there, I feel you, I see you, I am one of you. And yet my absolute favorite life stage of, in the world are tweens and teens, because I've devoted my career to kind of helping those kids navigate that period in their lives, which I find very exhilarating, very exciting as they emerge into the people that they are going to become. There is just this renewed sense of independence. It's painful for us as parents to experience often because of that independence and that pushback, but it's really what we want for them to grow, to push back, to find their own voice, and to be able to kind of come out the other side of this with our relationship intact with them, but also with their mental health intact. And so today, in focusing on study skills and time management, it is focused on what role can we play to help our kids as they navigate, school, which has gotten, it's not only so competitive, it's so confusing. I'm not even going to talk about AI and Chat GPT today, but throw in just what's out there and the temptations for kids. And it has become a really murky, stressful, continues to be overwhelming situation. So today we're going to break it down, and hopefully you'll all leave here a little bit calmer and with some new skills for your toolbox. So where do you want to start?
Well, I love that, how each kid is so different. And that's hard to, it's
Yep.
like once you think you figured it out, they can throw you a total curveball. Thank you for sharing that you struggle too. We're always learning. You are not alone in this. That's what we're big about here at Moms of Tweens and Teens, bringing us together around our challenges. So let's just kind of start by, what are you seeing? That you shared a little bit. What are you saying about around the biggest challenges that parents are going through, caregivers, with their kids right now?
Yeah. I really think one of the biggest struggles is time management, and with anxiety in teens being at a peak, and also with anxiety in parents being at a peak, which we'll talk about shortly. I think that time management is complicated because there are only a certain number of hours in the day. Our kids need their sleep. The studies tell us that they need a certain amount. And so that's kind of going out the window. The college admissions process doesn't seem to be getting any easier. In some ways, it's more complicated, even though we have this common application. Kids are applying to upwards of 20 colleges or something like that. So that's sort of a process. But high school and middle school in and of itself just seems like a more stressful, pressure-filled environment, not just academically, but social emotionally. So time management is something that I think we can wrap our arms around with our kids. And if we come up with a system and a plan, it feels like we or our kids can be more in control of the things that feel out of control. So in the book, The Everything Guide to Study Skills, and also this one called Straight A Study Skills, we talk about ways that you can kind of help your kids create, a calendar or a system or a way to sort of manage their chunks of time. And we can go through a little bit more strategically how to do that even today. But one resource that I have found recently, which I think is really helpful, and I didn't know about when I was writing the books, is something called the Eisenhower Matrix. And I don't have a link for it, but we could just put Eisenhower, like the president, former president, matrix, which, and I don't know if you're familiar with this at all, Sheryl, but it's a way that kids and or parents can prioritize the tasks that they have at hand from the most important to the least important. Because oftentimes in our time management, we want to finish what's easiest, what's quickest, what we like the best, what takes the least amount of effort. And then we procrastinate, as we see in the comments here, as long as we can to delay the stuff we don't want to do, we don't like, we don't feel we're good at. We do it as adults and our kids do it as students, right? So how can we shift and prioritize? So one of the biggest, kind of study skills, but pieces into time management would be when your kids are ready to begin their work, encouraging them or having a conversation with them about what are their goals and what do they need to get done tonight? What's the biggest priority? What is maybe long-term, like something that might be due at the end of the week or at the end of 2 weeks, but then focusing on encouraging them. And either by just stating it that I went to a study skills session for parents in order to try to find ways to support you, because your kids like to know that you're trying to learn to be a better parent, kind of evens your playing field a little bit. And say to them, for me, it worked really well to do the hardest and the things I enjoyed the least first, to get them out of the way when I had the most energy, when I just wanted to like almost punish myself so I could be done with the worst stuff and save the easy, fluffy, lighter projects to do towards the end when my brain is a little bit less engaged. And it's kind of flipping the script a little bit. And honestly, we do the same thing. It's like, oh, there's this one thing we really don't want to do. But if you get that done, then the weight is kind of lifted off of your shoulders. So one thing is just the planning of it and having those really easy conversations. It could be on a Sunday night. It could just be sort of like a family meeting, the way you might have it with a partner or a spouse, or if you're a single parent planning your week ahead, but having it with your kids and just saying, hey, just checking in, what's going on with, your hard classes, your easy classes, what are your long-term and short-term assignments, and is there anything I can do to support you so that your kids know you're interested in supporting them and you're interested in kind of helping them plan ahead. Because again, we all know that 11 p.m. run to Office Depot or Walgreens or wherever we have to go for the last minute poster board supplies, right? So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So having a really loose conversation, and the way that you make it non-threatening is by saying, well, for me this week, for my work, I have X, Y, and Z, and I hate this the most, but I'm getting it done. I'm getting it done tomorrow. And I'm telling you, I'm getting it done tomorrow. So I'm accountable for it. And it sort of, again, shows your kids that you're struggling with time management or you're managing your time the way they need to manage your time. The good news is you're here to offer support and help in whatever way they want it. Does that mean doing their homework for them? No. Does that mean, planning a conversation they might want to have with a teacher in something they're struggling in, or strategizing on a long-term assignment with like a group of people that they might not want to be assigned to work with, but they need to, any of those kinds of ways where you can support them through conversation and through some actions to take a few things off their plate. Look, it's okay to go pick up the supplies. Just don't pick up the supplies and be told about it the night before they're due. But hey, I'm going to be at the pharmacy later today. Do you need me to pick up anything for you that you might have, that you might need for school, whatever it might be? So I just think having a conversation reduces the level of anxiety, lets them know you're interested and engaged. And you can really say the words, I'm not trying to micromanage you. I know you can do this on your own. I just want you to know I'm here and I'm happy to help in ways that I can be supportive. That would be sort of one place to start.
Yeah, I really like that, because you're asking rather than telling, which I think we tend to tell. That's our, what we want to do. Like, you need to do this or you need to do that, where that's helping them be more independent.
Yeah.
What they're wanting to be at this age. So did you see the question from Tammy? What if they lie?
Okay. So yes,
kids. What about if they lie when they're,
right. Right. So here's the thing. So you mentioned earlier, Sheryl, and this is even not a generation ago, but whatever, 10 or 15 years ago, when you were doing this with your daughter, you mentioned checking the school portal for kind of what they've done, what they've not done. And you suddenly were shocked at seeing all these missing assignments. So I am very old school. in my parenting and in my approach based on how many kids I've worked with. Checking your kids' portal and checking up on them of what they did and what they didn't do is punitive, and it's too much. And remember, we used to get the report card in the mail, in your mailbox, and like you would wait by the mailbox hoping you would get it before your parents, so you could take a look at it first, whatever it might be. You as parents need to kind of discipline yourself on that. When you say your child's lying about it or might not be telling you what they need to do, I think it's just a sense of making sure that you say the words to them. Listen, I really trust you. I really trust you. I'm putting my trust in you that you know the things you need to do. But if I do learn that, lots of things are missing or that you're really struggling, I'm going to be really sad because I'm here to support you. But in order for me to support you, I need to trust that you are getting your tasks done and your assignments done and your things managed. And if there are subjects or teachers each term that are adding complexity to your life or adding stress to your life, or that you're really feeling lost or unmotivated or not turning in the assignments, let's have a conversation about it before it's too late. And what you're basically then doing is you're getting out there that you might know they're not telling you the whole story. And when they hear you say you trust them, it empowers them, but it also might open up the conversation for, is something going on that you want to talk about? And, when Tammy is saying, I asked a lot and he lied, I guess my follow-up question would be, was that discovered once, there were zeros on the assignments, or not until the report card came out, or did a teacher contact you, for example? And each case is a tiny bit different, but it certainly merits sit-down conversation at the right moment. That's key too, at the right moment with your kid, because those moments need to be when the devices are put down, maybe when a meal is being eaten, when they're in sort of a better mood. They might just be having a little bit of their recreation to kind of, it can't be the minute they get in the car or right as they're leaving the door to go to school. It needs to be at like a decompressed sort of time. And if there is something that's problematic, you got a call from a teacher, you got a call from their advisor, whatever it might be, then yes, that usually merits you either having to go into the school with them, but still having a conversation prior to it so that you're on the same page completely and understanding, what went wrong. And I just think accusing your kids of lying is never going to work. It's, hey, I trust you. I am putting my trust in you because I know you're capable of doing this. But if there's something we need to talk about, I'd rather know now than hear about it, later on your report card or from your teachers or someone else. So is there anything you want to share with me? I'm not going to punish you. I just want to have that conversation with you. And it does require us to be pretty calm because, nobody wants to be lied to, right? But I just think no one wants to be micromanaged either. So there's got to be a way to communicate it. And I just always think trust is the best word to use. And the other piece I'll add is I am a very big believer in storytelling. And I think it's important that our kids hear from us our stories. And they may not even be, I'll just whisper this, they don't even have to be totally true. It can just be a way that we're showing them empathy and we're showing that we've been through something like this too. And that we came out the other side of it. And we know that they can come out the other side of it. So whatever that might be, an assignment that they missed, a failure on a test, whatever it might be, we can tell them, oh, I know how that feels. And it's awful. And I'm hurting with you. And I totally get it. What kinds of steps might you plan to take to have it not be the same next time? How can I help support you to learn from this? Or what way do you think you're going to help resolve this? And so I do think the storytelling gives them a sense that we're human too. We can relate. Here's the thing, moms and dads. We've all been teenagers. We've all been tweens. We've all made those same mistakes. But if we tell them the answers to everything and we figure it all out for them and do it all for them, then where's the independence and joy for them in anything? You know, they have to own it all. They own the good and they own the bad. And we're that safety net underneath that will always be there unconditionally. We just will, no matter how much our kids screw up. I mean, we will, and how much they make choices we wouldn't have made. But gosh, didn't we make choices that our parents probably didn't want us to make either? And aren't we also human? So I'll get off the little soapbox, but hopefully it gives you things to think about trust and about showing empathy and about letting them know they're not alone, that you always will have their back, but that you need to have that trust kind of go both ways.
Yeah. I just want to say about the trust thing. That was one of the things that my daughter, my oldest, said to me later, and she's written quite a few blog post articles, is, Mom, you didn't trust me. And when you didn't trust me, it actually was deflating for me. It was, then I thought, why even try if she's not trusting me? And then my youngest, who's 9 years younger, I would say that to her. And she has said to me years later, Mom, just because you told me you trusted me, I actually wanted to do it, because it was like we're that mirror that we hold up for our kids. And so we might have to fake it till we make it. You know, if you've got a kid like, I don't know, they're lying to me, it might be a little difficult, but I'm telling you, the message, they want to live up to that. So I've experienced that in my own parenting. And then another thing that I experienced was the lying piece is code for back off. That was because I was so in there, and then they don't want to tell us because they want to get us off their back. So I agree with you too around that, Cynthia. You know, I just really had to, our kids will give us good feedback. And if we're constantly on them, they're just going to tell us, I did it with my mom. I was like, no, I did my homework already. So I did that too.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'll just add, so thank you for sharing those, those stories too, Sheryl. And, for those who are at the Parent Compass book club, you will already know this, but if you haven't been, I mean, one of the hardest things that we are asking parents to do right now in this generation of kids is to pull back, is to give them, more autonomy so that they can make the mistakes, so that they can fail, so that they can feel what it feels like to be uncomfortable and hurt, not having us wipe every nose, wipe every knee, pick them up every single time, but sit with them through that discomfort and just say, God, I know how it hurts. I know how much it hurts. And I'm so sorry you're hurting. And I'm here for you in whatever way I can be. And then to ask them how they want you there, because it's interesting. Some of them just want to dump it and let out all the garbage and walk away, and then they feel better. And others want to talk about it back and forth or strategize. And others just want a hug or a brownie or just to be heard and listened to and kind of get it off their chest. So it's tricky because there's so many gray areas in parenting, and there's so many different ways our kids might respond. And it's even trickier when your kids aren't responding in the way you would have responded at their age, right? And when one mom said, well, my daughter will just roll her eyes and say, you don't get it because you're old and it was a long time ago, then you can still, make up a story about someone else's kid or about another sibling or about a friend of yours or whatever it might be. Because I do think ultimately, if our kids see us being vulnerable, it lets them realize that we're not completely bossy and mean and rude and kind of managing everything. So I'm just a big believer in that kind of transparency and honesty with our kids. And Sheryl knows this about me too, but I've definitely cried in front of my kids. They have seen me at my lowest of lows. They have seen me make mistakes and own them. And all we can do is just model that we're human too, and that we're doing the best we can. And the fact that, so many of you are even here today, I always tell my kids when I go to parent education, I say, I went to a class today to learn to be a better mom or dad. And they go, what? And then I'll sometimes say, do you have any feedback for me on how I can be a better mom or dad? And boy, they really like to give you their feedback. So, take their temperature and get their report card on you too. And you can sort of decide if you want to, follow what they're asking for or not. And if you do have a partner or spouse you're sharing parenting responsibilities with, as we know, they go to different parents for different things, and they do know how to kind of find what they need and navigate who will be more supportive in certain ways. So anyway, let's go back to like the study skills and the time management and the tactical things that we're still planning to kind of teach.
Yes. So scaffolding, one of the moms was saying, okay, so how do I start this? They struggle without a scaffolding approach. So that's Rachel. So what would you say? Where do we start? You mentioned time management. I know
Right.
you talk a lot about like their environment and where they set themselves up to study.
Right. So it's interesting. So my daughter is 18. She's a high school senior. We're in the thick of college applications and and standardized tests and high stress in this home of one child remains. And the temperature is high right now. And I'm trying to follow my own advice and kind of keep things as low and normal as we can. And I was telling Sheryl a little bit earlier offline that I will preach that I think the study space where your kids do their work is really important, that it's kind of quiet, that it's well lit, that it's not like lying on a couch or lying on a bed or too comfy, that it's just sort of like a defined study space. And I believe in that's something we can provide for our kids. Sometimes it's the kitchen, sometimes it's a common room or a dining room table. Sometimes like my daughter does her homework a lot of times in her brother's bedroom because he's not here. So she spreads out on that desk. And she told me, Mom, data tells us that doing homework in your bedroom isn't always the best place to do it, that you should rotate and move around. And it kind of got me thinking. I was like, I wonder like where that data's from. And so some kids do really well in their bedroom with the bed and the dog and whatever, like around them. But to me, that just seems too comfortable and too easy to fall asleep. And you're not like getting your business done. So just like at school, you're sitting at a desk or a high top table or whatever it might be. I believe that we can provide that at home. That being said, that worked great for my first 3 kids. Great. They had a desk, they had it in their room. It was well lit. They left their phones outside. They would turn off their social networking apps when they went in to like do their homework. Social networking seems to find you no matter what on whatever device, your watch, your iPad, your computer, whatever it might be. But for my daughter, it's all about the couch. It is the middle of the house. There's a couch, a coffee table, there's blankets, there's snacks. She switches. We have an L-shaped couch. So she starts on one side, she ends up on the other. The cushions are everywhere. And then there's like a kitchen island area that sort of started getting taken over. And it's making me crazy because I'm like type A. I like everything to be where it's supposed to be. And this is, I go into the kitchen, I feel like I need to be quiet. So I was kind of encouraging her, like, let's find another place. And she's like, this works for me. Like this place works for me. I'm like, but I'm going to be in and out of the kitchen and it's kind of the center of the house. And she's like, okay, like that's okay. So I still am living in the space. She alternates classes at her school where you have like 3 or 4 one day and then 3 or 4 the next day. So one day, all the stuff from the opposite day is left behind. And then she packs that up. And the next day, the other opposite stuff is left behind. So it's like a constant, I call it like, she's like a squirrel. She's like leaving piles everywhere of where she's been. And I can see where she's been. And it makes me crazy, but it works for her. It's working for her. So I have had to adapt as a parent to go, all right, I'm going to accept it. She has a countdown of how many days are left of high school. We have a countdown as well. Everybody is burnt out and tired and ready to be done. But that being said, shame on me. I believe in the desk and the lit space, but for that kid, it doesn't work. So helping your kid find the way that it works for them and being okay with that and willing to support that, I think is really important. What we can provide are healthy snacks, study breaks, doing stuff for too long, 30-minute increments, is a great number, or even 20 minutes and then a little 5-minute break, trying to find a pattern or a system that can support them. And you're the snack provider. Some kids even, some families have told me it's been really helpful to have an egg timer, those old fashioned ones instead of a phone that's a timer, old fashioned egg timer or old fashioned digital clock that they still sell those at Target and a lot of places to kind of give them a sense of how much time they've spent and then when they can take their breaks and whatever it is. And frequent breaks, and I call them also rewards, are awesome because it can be just a walk around the block. It can be a snack. It can be checking social media or checking a thing, but then, 5 minutes, then you're done with your break. And then you're back to kind of getting the business done. And again, it's really hard to schedule the time because some kids have after school activities and you have other kids that you're driving places. So how do you know that your kid that at home is getting their stuff done? This is where the trust piece comes in, is I'm going to be driving your younger sibling here, and then I'm going to be there. I've left food in the refrigerator. Here's how I'm communicating with you. I'll be home at this time. Hopefully in this period of time, you'll be able to get your work done, and whatever you don't get done, I'm happy to, support you when I get home in whatever way I can. Or do you need me to pick up food or whatever those things are? Those are the kinds of conversations that can help them plan their days. And their days aren't the same every day either. The amount of assignments, what's due, bigger projects, little projects, whatever. So I just think typically like a meeting informally, maybe on a Sunday, or even could be Monday night when they have an idea of what the week's looking like ahead, is just a good check-in point to then figure out how you can slot yourself into being supportive and let them know that you're available or when you're available to be supportive. So those would be kind of some little tips I would kind of throw in there. And when you ask them about their schedule, you can be gentle. You don't have to be like, tell me what's due and when it's due. Cause then it seems like you're, oh my God, did you get this done? Did you get that done? You don't have to, once you've had the conversation, you don't have to check in on all of it. You just have to kind of have a sense of what does this week look like and how can I help you? And for my daughter, the week looked like I have a big paper due Friday. So I started working on that. I have standardized tests in 2 weeks. So I'm going to do a practice test, but not till the weekend. And I have this group project, which is giving me a lot of trouble because nobody else is doing anything except me. How many people hear that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, can that be delegated or not? And what do you need to do to get the assignment done, even if no one else is doing anything? So, and then that's where the empathy piece comes in. Like, oh, I hated those projects when you were the only one who felt like you were doing it. So, that would be kind of part of it. And anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love that each kid is different. I love how you're saying, ask them, like, how can I support you? Because different things work for different kids.
Yeah.
And the timer was huge, especially for my youngest. And then they feel like, oh, you're on my team. Like, hey, would it help to, set a timer where for just 30 minutes? I even did it for my daughter on unloading the dishwasher, believe it or not. It was like, I don't have time, Mom, to unload the dishwasher. I'm like, let's just put a stopwatch and see how long it takes you. Because they don't have a concept of the amount of time. And so she said that was so helpful. She's like, it took me 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But it feels to those kids that are so overwhelmed, knowing like, oh, I think a 30-minute timer would be good. They know there's like, okay, I can do this for 30 minutes. So I find that very helpful. So do you want to add, there's some.
Well, yeah. So a couple of things. First of all, the questions coming in are incredible. I'm going to get to them in just a second, but I want to backtrack and say one thing. Let me tell you why I wrote this book. It's really important for parents to know. I've worked with so many hundreds of students on their college applications. And what I found is that many of them were coming to me that were kind of middle level or maybe low end of the classroom students. Not the students who had it all figured out, that were like wired for, straight A's and teacher relationships and knowing what they were doing. But it was the kids in the middle and the kids at the bottom that I found needed the most help and had the most growth that they could create. And what I learned in working with all these kids is that many of them didn't know how to get unstuck from where they were. They were labeling themselves and they were being labeled by their teachers and maybe their parents as just kind of average or below average. And I took such a passion and interest in these kids because I was in that other group that had it all figured out. But what I realized is that those skills can be taught. very easily if somebody just lays them out for you. And what I would start to ask those kids are, well, tell me like what your day looks like. Like, where do you sit in class? And do you have a teacher that you ever go talk to? And have you ever asked about extra credit or done extra credit? Or, what do you do when you get a bad grade? What steps do you take? And when I would hear their answers, they were lost. They didn't have a plan. And so we wrote this book, The Everything Guide to Study Skills, to give them tangible steps on here's how to study, a great 10 ideas on how to study for exams. Here's great ideas on how to build relationships with teachers and the steps you can take to do that. Here's a chapter on standardized testing. Here's a chapter on memorizing and how to be a good memorizer. And so we broke down the book into ways that kids could kind of flip to the chapter as a reference guide of, God, I'm really having trouble here. And, oh, here's a bunch of ideas on how I can kind of do that differently. And the book originally was called High School Rules. I felt like there were 14 rules in high school, and it was kind of like a play on words. High school rules, like it's so awesome, it rules. And high school rules, like the rules to follow. And I started giving presentations in schools all over the country. And I kept getting the same feedback as, can you just put these rules in like a book for our kids? And so the Everything Guide to Study Skills kind of fell in my lap, and it's been out since 2011. And it has not been updated because everything is still totally current in it. And the point is that there are ways, like when a parent just asks, is it better to sit at a kitchen table or in a bedroom to do work? Or is it better to listen to music or not listen to music? The greatest answer is whatever works best for your kid. Now, our kids know how to multitask in a way we never could have imagined. They are being bombarded by news, social media, music, sounds, lights, noise from every category. And I used to do an experiment with my students. I would put in my earbuds and I would be typing my computer and I'd be looking at this and I'd be talking on the phone, and someone would come up and I'd say, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, did you want to have a conversation with me? How can you have a conversation when all that stuff is going? Well, somehow these kids are used to that chaos and noise. So if listening to music isn't harming things, great. I always say, if you choose music that's elevator music or kind of nature sounds or things that don't have lyrics that you're going to get distracted and sing along to. But some kids are mouthing the words and jamming through their mathematics homework because that works for them. So I just think that study skills are really easy to teach. And that's why I'm so excited about this book, that it's still chugging. And then at the time, my 8th grader, who's the one that's now a high school teacher and coach, and he's 26 years old now, read this book when it came out and was leafing through it. We had a little celebration dinner when mommy wrote her book. And he said, I think you missed a few things. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yeah, because, I like to approach classes this way and that way. And he started, and I said, well, you have some really good ideas, Justin. Maybe the next time I write a book, you'll write it with me. So together we wrote Straight A Study Skills, which is written by an 8th grader and their mother. That's right in the sweet spot of where all you are, as an idea book, really like an idea a day of how to be a better student. And so I just think that having tools to refer to that aren't you and that aren't searching on the internet or whatever, that are already distilled down, can be really, really helpful. And I'm not just saying that, I'm saying go buy these books. There's lots of study skills books out there, but I just think that the more support that we can provide in a variety of different mediums, the better. And when this one parent that's asking about ADHD and kids with learning differences, and Sheryl's even more of an expert in this because she's had a kid with learning differences. And I have a kid with some learning differences, but they come more from like test taking anxiety and like self-reflection and like sensitivity to noise, but it's not like a diagnosed, it's been educational tested, but it's not ADHD. But what I can say is there are incredible resources out there. Sheryl probably knows Order Out of Chaos. I love what Order Out of Chaos does. They have a website, but they also have an Instagram at Order Out of Chaos. And they just have all kinds of great resources for kids with ADHD and support. Every public school has a lot in place now for kids in study skills and supporting them. I would say public schools better than private schools are better equipped to support some of these kids with learning differences and learning challenges, whether it means quieter testing space, extra time. Kids do need to be, tested for that and go through like a barrage of educational testing, which can take some time. But also most all public schools in every district offer that kind of testing at a, very reduced rate or a government sponsored rate or, whatever it might be. We paid a lot of money and did it privately, but we needed it to happen very quickly because of the situation we were in. So it just depends on, what you have in the particular region where you're studying. But someone else, Cheryl's also saying she's got great resources, on her site as well. So I would just say it's great that you're aware that your kid or your grandchild has those learning challenges, and in the ADHD having a paper planner often is, to me, one of the first places to turn. Do you remember those old school planners? They used to give them out at schools. Now you have to go buy them at, an office place, but seeing it in a paper way. My daughter uses a whiteboard in her class, in her bedroom, where she actually writes down in different color. That helps her do it. Having a system that you keep going back to, that's easy to reference, and preferably, I think, not electronic, because then that pulls you into other electronic areas. Having it on paper or having it on a whiteboard or having it visible. Even those big old school paper calendars, like we used to put on our desks, like a blotter pad, whatever it is, help create that system. And kids do like the highlighting, the underlining, it helps them visually kind of see that as like a reminder. And then it also really feels great. It's like a dopamine hit to cross things out, to kind of put a line through it that it's done. And checklists, I'm a big checklister too. So this is, we talk about it in the study skills book, but Cheryl's also got extra great resources too. Done.
Sure. Yeah. Reach out to me. I'd love to help you. Well, in the planner, those always got lost. The books always got forgotten. So my daughter actually had to take pictures of the board. So that is an electronic, but sometimes they don't let them now have them in school. But I think the point being that what we're both saying is helping them to figure out what's going to work for them.
A system.
And I'll just, and figuring out what kind of support they need.
Yeah.
We can't do it all on our own. It was like, I had to find some reinforcements because it's really overwhelming.
Yeah.
Very overwhelming. So thanks for asking that, because I know that you are not alone in that, Diane. There's a lot of moms here that are in that place. So
one other thing I think that could be helpful is I shared a document earlier with Sheryl when we were kind of planning this conversation together. And I just want to read through really briefly some of these key points that are expanded upon in the Everything Guide to Study Skills, but that I think might like trigger for some of you. And maybe when I say them, it'll prompt a question.
Yeah, which one is it? Because Jen can share the link.
No, I think this one, so I have those study skills. I did have some study skills lists that we can share, and Jen has those. It's like the top 10 study skills and the top 10 time management techniques that I've kind of distilled down. So everyone who comes today will get a link to that, and you'll probably put it in a link in the follow-up emails, I would imagine. So that's also on my website as well, which I can share at the end too. But what I was going to say is I could give a whole talk on this. I don't want to monopolize everyone's time on this, but these are sort of some of the main things that the tenets of what I consider kind of the high school rules that help in the study skills and time management. One is the concept, and not every parent agrees, but my son, who's 26, tells me he has sworn by this since the day he heard me say it when he was a little boy, which is that school is your job. And I believe that parents need to instill the fact that that's your job that you get up to do every day. You may not like everything about it. I certainly don't like everything about my job, whether it's being just, being a stay-at-home parent, or whether it's a job at an office, or whether it's a virtual job, whatever my job may be. But your job is to kind of go to school, figure out what each of your bosses, these teachers, want you to do, and do it the way they want you to do it. It's not always fun. It's not always easy. I know there's a lot of homework. I know there's assignments you hate. I know there's classes that are boring. I know there's teachers that are boring, but that's your job. So there's going to be good parts of your job and bad parts of your job. And within that, parents find every semester the thing that makes them the most excited. Because when parents are telling me my kids procrastinate, or they hate school, or they don't want to do homework, there has got to be one thing that you can find, that you can dig up that they like about school. It could just be the friends. It could be the food. It could be the PE class. It could be any activity or club that they're a part of, or it could be their sport, or it could be one teacher. That's awesome. Or one class or book they're reading. That's awesome. And focus in on that and ask about that and have them teach you about that and be excited for them that that excites them, even if it's something that you have no interest in. So when finding school is your job, then find out what they like best about it. And that can change. Obviously, the best subjects can be ruined by teachers that they don't connect with, and the best teachers can inspire them to love subjects that they never may have loved before. So that's always fluid. That's always changing, but that is something worth trying to find. It does help in the procrastination department because it helps say, well, there's a couple things we know you like. So let's get excited about those things. Sitting in the first 3 rows of every class. You can model this as a family. Anytime you go to like an event at a venue or a back to school night or, a concert, if you can afford the front row tickets or anywhere that's free, go sit up front and encourage your kids. If they're assigned a seat in the back of their class or their classroom is not shaped with chairs in a circle or around a circular table, that they should ask to be reseated. They can say they don't see great or they're having trouble focusing, and no teacher will say, no, you can't sit up front, because the kids that sit up front don't fall asleep because they can't. They have to be more engaged. Studies have showed us that the teachers notice the kids who are up front more. And that especially goes in schools where you might have upwards of 30 kids in your class. So find a way, encourage your kids to find a way, brainstorm with them a way to find a way to get up close in class. Extra credit, asking for it. I call it free money. If your kid didn't do well on a test, ask them if they've asked their teacher if they can do test corrections. Some teachers allow that. Or if there's an extra assignment they could do to help earn extra points or whatever it might be. It's kind of like finding strategies to sort of win at school. If you view school as not necessarily a competition against others, but like you being the best student or the best at your job that you can try to be, even if there are things you don't like about school, like treat it like a video game. You're trying to win it in some way. I don't know. That could be a way. And then this is something you can really measure, parents. What is the actual amount of time it takes your kids to get their work done on average? And what's the actual amount of sleep they're really getting? Can you help figure that out? Can you check in with them and say, hey, today, let's set a timer and see how much time it really does take you to get all this stuff done, or can you log it? And hey, tonight, let me know what time you go to bed and let me know what time you wake up, because I'd love to make sure and help you get enough sleep, because every study tells us that's incredibly important. And if you're not getting enough sleep, let's figure out how we can be more efficient or how we can pull back so you can rewind your day a little more to get to bed a bit sooner. And daylight savings has made all of us crazy, at least in the United States. I don't know how that works overseas, but it's like last night it was 6:15 and I was yawning like in my nightgown already. And my daughter came in, she's like, okay, I'm getting ready for bed. I'm like, oh my God, it's 6:15. She's like, what? Like, it feels like midnight. Like, what is going on? So we're all messed up right now. But anyway, study skills and time management. That's kind of what this talk is about. What does their study space look like? We mentioned that. Teacher relationships. I'm huge on that. If your kid needs to have one person in their corner that's from their school, it could be their advisor, it could be their coach, it could be a teacher of one class. Help them identify who that person can be and encourage them to cultivate that relationship, because eventually they're going to need a letter of recommendation. Eventually they're going to have a big problem that they're going to need to go to talk to someone about who's not you, and they need an advocate in their corner. And it doesn't always have to be their own teacher from their own class. It could be someone they really like that heads up their activity, or that's their coach or someone else. But it's key to help them or find out from them, who is that person at school that's a teacher that you really trust and that you really like. Oh, you don't have one? Oh my gosh, let's figure out a way for you to try to find one. Like, who is your nicest teacher this year? Or who's the person that makes you laugh the most? And who says hello to you when you see them? And do you say hello to them when you see them? And try to kind of build that, rapport. Anyway, the list kind of goes on, but I just think there are some really tactical, practical things we can keep encouraging our kids to do. And I loved how Sheryl put it, that we're on their team. We're their teammate. We're not their coach. We're not their, worker bee, but we're their teammate. And we want the team to win and to be successful. And remember, most importantly, a B for some students is a huge celebration. It is a celebration. And even a B- can be a celebration, or a C+ in a class that has been a huge challenge. It's about the effort more than the outcome. And I know that's hard to kind of swallow when it comes to like transcripts and test scores and college admissions. But I remind parents there are 4,000 colleges in the United States, plus a lot of other routes to take, plus community colleges. And not every kid is ending up in some college on some fancy list that is created to market and promote colleges, which are businesses that want your money and that want your students and that want as many kids to apply as possible because it makes them look fancier on these lists. So take a step back and discover what route might be the right route for your kid. My daughter most likely is going to take a gap year, and we can talk all about that. But 10 years ago, people would say, ooh, everything okay? And nowadays people are like, wow, what are they going to do? How awesome. That sounds fun. Like, how did they decide to do that? So just know that what worked back then doesn't always work now. And we have the entire final chapter of the Parent Compass dedicated to alternate routes that aren't college. So it doesn't always have to be about that as the destination.
I love that.
Okay.
I think it's trusting, we'll get to the questions too, but it's trusting their path. Each of my kids had a different path. One went to college and was home by Thanksgiving. It's, it looks different. That was not what I wanted, but it's like, we do have to have some trust and faith that their path, it might not be the path that we envisioned for them, but they do, to let them figure things out and find their way and know that we're there to support them, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So yeah, and stay calm, because I think we do the fortune telling thing. For those of you that know, I talk about the fortune telling. Oh my gosh, if they don't get it together and they're not doing their homework right now, then life is going to go terrible for them. And I just want to assure you that is not true.
Yeah. So Sheryl, I was having a conversation with my husband last night, and our view of college has completely taken a 180 since our first child. And we both will freely converse or admit that to anyone. Now, my husband and I both met at Stanford. We were really driven. We were really academic. We kind of figured out how to do high school, and we were self-motivated and all the things that everyone seems to want for their kids. And it wasn't the answer to everything, right? I mean, there's plenty of people I know from my college that are miserable and unhappy and haven't, found life success and joy. So it's not like that's the answer. Okay. But our first child was super academic, sent himself to boarding school for high school, really thought it was cool to be smart, wanted to learn from people around him and of all different backgrounds, and wanted to just get out of the small bubble of our suburban environment. And we let him go and do that. And his journey took lots of twists and turns and lots of graduate degrees. And now he's living on a boarding school campus, which has kind of come full circle, living with, his girlfriend, who's also a teacher, and he's coaching and he's doing a PhD. And I think he'll be in school forever. So that works great for that kid. And the next kid, was very, very athletic, but also academic, and sort of did that scholar athlete route and wanted to only study business in college, not, a general liberal arts education, which lots of people tout as like the way to get all this exposure. And my older son told his younger brother, don't just go to school to just study business. Like, you have to learn the arts and the humanities and this and that. And if you don't ever do it now, you'll never do it in your life. And his younger brother said, yeah, no, like that does not interest. I'm glad that interests you. That does not interest me. So he took his journey, and now he's living in New York, and he's, working in finance or whatever. Great. Super happy. And that's good for him. And then the next son was significantly younger. He kind of came along and was, and he charted his own path. That kid, he learned to play the drums. And then after a year or two of the drums, he was kind of bored with the drums. So then he played some soccer. Then he got kind of bored with soccer. Then he got interested in football, kind of did football. And my husband and I worried about him. We thought, where's he going? Where is he going to end up? And, he liked school, but he was pretty social. So school wasn't like the most important thing to him. And he's now found his path on his journey. He's also in college and enjoying football and kicking. He's a kicker, so he does football, and that's great for him. And then we get to the last one, and she is thinking about maybe art school. She's thinking about a gap year. She's thinking maybe about just being done, being a student, because she's not loving writing papers and reading books and the environment of being in an academic scene. And she went to an arts program this summer, and it kind of just changed her whole trajectory. And my husband and I are like, you know what? It's kind of okay if she's done with like academic learning, because she has all these other great life skills, and she's going to be okay too. And she's going to find the things that bring her joy. And honestly, in the world that we live in now, with hybrid work and with hybrid schooling in some cases still, and with online opportunities and whatever else, we just view like college isn't really the answer to everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's getting more accepted. So be open-minded, I guess, is probably, what you used to believe doesn't become what you will always believe and embrace. So
yeah. To know they're each going to have a different path and finding that for themselves.
Yeah.
So do you want me to go over the questions? There's some really good questions.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't look in the Q&A.
And as we go through the questions, then also, Cindy, moms can comment and you can continue.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just pulling them up too. So whatever, do you want to read them and I'll,
but what's more helpful for you? I can. Okay. She says, all right, I'm going to leave it anonymous. All right.
Okay.
So S says, what about someone with ADHD? I find it helps getting an easier task done first, because a quick win helps with motivation to do more. Maybe try hard tasks first sometimes, ? I worry about feeling overwhelmed and freezing.
And this is the parent or the child. I worry about feeling overwhelmed and freezing.
I think let's take it. Well, it could be both. I'm relating to you, but let's take it with the kid. If they have, they find it sometimes easier when they have a quick win versus doing the hardest task first.
So here's a perfect example of how some things might work for one that don't work for another. And in the case of ADHD, of which I'm not an expert, but what I would say is, if the satisfaction comes from getting stuff done that can be checked off, and then it's, then you can look at it and go, wow, you got this done. You got this done. You got this done. Okay. Now we got this biggie. Then that's fine. Like if that works for that child, I would say yes, then flip the script and don't do the hardest stuff first. I think I'm talking about the hardest stuff first in kind of maybe a more traditional mainstream student that might not have learning challenges, who is having trouble with procrastination, right? So procrastination doesn't come from like a lot of kids who procrastinate are super bright and they are just totally bored out of their bazungas. Like they're just bored by the material. They think homework is a waste of time. They feel like the homework is kind of useless and just takes too much effort. And, right now, what we're finding a lot, unfortunately, in classrooms is the kids who are doing the homework, legitimately on their own without assistance, are getting punished or penalized, because plenty of kids are getting not just tutoring, but like the internet and chat GPT and whatever else to do their homework for them. I mean, it's very bizarre. We're living a little bit in a futuristic, evolving situation with resources that are out there. And I think there's some incredible things about, today is not about AI, but I think there's incredible things about AI and chat GPT. And then I think there's a lot of scary things that we're kind of learning as we go. So I would say with someone with ADHD, if that works better for them to get short-term tasks done quickly, then yes, by all means, don't change it if it's working that way. But if it's not, and these overwhelming tasks become too big and become bigger and bigger and create more stress and anxiety, then those can be parsed up and broken down into smaller bites and smaller pieces. And sometimes kids with ADHD will benefit from having not parental support, but maybe, a specialized tutor or somebody who can help them through some of those extra things. And I'm not big on like just hiring a tutor for every subject. I get very wary about that. I have my own theories on tutoring, but in certain cases, or if a student is struggling in a particular area, I think it can be really helpful, with the goal being over time to wean off of the tutor. Because if we're over tutored through high school, like, then what do we do when we get to college? Like, then we need to go to the study skills center every day there too, and continue to have tutors. Like, kids lose faith in their own ability. And oftentimes tutors want to keep getting hired. So tutors do the work, don't always teach your kids how to do the work, but end up doing the work for your kids. And then your kids get to the test and they don't know what they're doing because they haven't really done the homework. So it all can kind of spiral in the wrong way. So I do think, tutoring can help in certain instances, and it just is a case by case, class by class, probably choice.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
So.
And I do like I always love, for me, somebody that has ADHD, you can't eat an elephant all in one bite. Like, I find that very helpful. Break it down. I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. Even the gym, my husband and I say, we're going to go for like 10 minutes. So we end up staying because we go. It's like getting yourself.
That's right.
The hump. So anyway, so thank you. That was a good question. All right, next one. We are struggling with finding the balance between my daughter's desire to be independent and what our role is in supporting her as she adjusts to high school. She keeps saying, I've got it, in regard to her schoolwork. Who's heard that? But it's clear from teacher feedback, the study behavior we observe at home and interim reports, that she doesn't. She gets distracted by her phone and access to socializing on her laptop while she's studying, doesn't manage her time effectively, which gets in the way. What would you say to that?
Yeah, well, and that question actually goes on. There's a lot going on there with also the idea.
It does. And then sleep, not studying effectively.
Right.
But she's motivated to get her grades up, but she's not changing her behaviors.
Right. So first of all, this is a very good read and analysis that this parent has on their teen, and kind of that fine line of how much do you intervene and how much do you let them do what they're doing and continue with maybe habits that you think could use some improvement, and how the social media piece plays in. And I guess I would say two things to this parent. The first thing would be, I would try to let the current behavior go as long as it can, in the sense that it's going to result in a bad grade or some bad comments from teachers or whatever it might be, which sometimes can be the perfect wake-up call for a kid, especially when there's not as much on the line, when they're in 8th or 9th grade, for example, and it's not like junior or senior year, right? So that potential hiccup, allowing them to fail, allowing them to make the mistakes, allowing them to fall, and allowing them to feel the consequence, which is possibly a bad grade or a couple bad grades, or really struggling in a particular class or whatever it might be, can become a really great turning point. And a conversation topic, and oh, wow, looks like this teacher. Now, if you're getting those teacher comments and those feedbacks as like they're reaching out for help or from you, then it may be time to ask your teen, should we go in and have a conversation with you with your teacher, or are you planning on having a conversation with your teacher? And I'm very big on equipping our kids and encouraging our kids to use their own voice and autonomy to speak for themselves. But in middle school, that's a little trickier than in high school. High school, I really think it's on the kid much more than the parent. But in middle school, I think parents are still in a position where they're able to kind of converse with the teachers and kind of intervene. And so what I would say is, if you're hearing back some things from the teachers from the interim report, it would be fair to say to your child, hey, your teacher said X, Y, and Z. Should I shoot them a little email? And do you think it would be helpful for us to go in and have a conversation with or without you? Or do you plan to have a conversation with your teacher based on this feedback? What's the plan? And then you can actually have a conversation because you have information that the school has provided you on your kid's behavior or on a grade or whatever it might be. And you can sort of, quote, tackle that problem together. Part two to that is what you talk about next, though, which has to do with, if they're abusing the use of their phone, and when do you, create restrictions, and when do you intervene, and whatever it might be. And one thing that you mentioned is goal setting. We haven't talked about that today, and that's a topic I really want to mention and take a moment to really focus on. And we have a whole chapter on goal setting in the Parent Compass, not in the study skills books, but in the Parent Compass. And I wish I had an addendum to the study skills books on goal setting. But goal setting, I think, is so crucial and essential. And it's something that we can do with our kids together. So when Sheryl just said, my husband and I are going to try to go to the gym for 10 minutes, they're setting a goal to try to be healthier together, and they're holding each other accountable. So when you say to your child, hey, I went to this parenting talk to learn to be a better parent, and I want to do something with you, I want each of us to set a goal. And I'm going to tell you my goal. Here's my goal. I'm going to try to get better exercise. And the way I'm going to do that is create these objectives. The first is I'm going to set my alarm for 10 minutes a day to stretch. And I'm going to look at my phone app and make sure that I walk 10,000 steps a day. Those are my 2 action steps I'm going to do to achieve my goal of moving my body more. What goal do you want to set? And they'll be like, I don't have any goals. I would say, well, let's talk about that. Because, for example, in this particular class, your teacher is saying you're really distracted or you haven't been turning in assignments. So let's see about maybe setting a goal for that class, or you can pick a different goal. Then you get your teenager to buy into the goal setting. And the goal setting is setting the goal and then creating 2 or 3 tangible steps that they're going to plan to take to achieve the goal. Then, after you've set your goals, and sometimes you can write them down or just verbally share them, now you have a reason to check in. And the way you're checking in is you're saying, how is your goal setting going? Today I walked only 5,000 steps and I didn't do my stretching. I'm setting an alarm tomorrow. And I'm not going to shower. I'm going to put on my workout clothes right when I wake up so that I'm positive I'm going to do my stretching, and I'm not going to shower until I've done my 10,000 steps. And your daughter's gonna be like, oh, well, you're going to be pretty smelly. But when she gets home from school that day, you're going to be able to tell her, here's my phone. I did 10,000 steps and I'm showered and I did my stretching, or whatever it is. And she's going to get home and you're going to say, how did that class go with that teacher that said you've been missing assignments? Did you speak to them about getting caught up, or did you speak to them about extra credit or about test corrections or whatever it is? So goal setting is an awesome way to partner with your teen or tween, because you can do it together and you can make it seem like you're working on something and they're working on something. And I know we talk all the time about modeling. This is a super easy way to model because it's real. You're modeling whatever. And it doesn't have to be about exercise. That's came to mind from what Sheryl said, but it could be, I want to stop biting my fingernails. I have a bad habit. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to put the stuff that tastes bad on my nails. I'm going to reward myself with X, Y, and Z if I have white on one of my fingernails. And then at the end of the week, I'm going to get a manicure if I have white on 5 of my fingernails. Okay. That could be your non-biting your fingernails goal of a bad habit. So helping your kid identify something that they want to fix, and then setting a goal to kind of fix it. And we give more examples of that in the book of goals that kids are setting kind of in high school. So that would be maybe the other piece, would be use this as an opportunity to set goals together. And I hear your struggle and I feel your struggle and I see you, is what I want to say, because I think everything you've written here, and as I'm reading it again, I mean, it's the real stuff. And we have so many gray areas as parents, so many decisions that we seem to have to make on a daily basis that are never ending. And these are the kinds of questions we want to just keep asking and trying to solve and trying to share about it, and keep coming to Sheryl so you can keep having these conversations, because this platform is a space for that. It's a safe space for that.
Yes. And I'm such a good question, because I did have a mom I was working with, and she had a kid that she was expecting to get organized. Both had ADHD, and she kept nagging him, like, you're not doing what you're meant to be doing. You're disorganized. And then she had an epiphany that her dining room table they couldn't even eat at because it was covered with paper. And she realized I need to go and start cleaning up my stuff and my dining room table. I'm asking him to get organized, but I'm not getting organized.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, okay, I can be focusing on my kid, but what do I need to be doing? And we can do it together.
Yeah. Well, making a system. So first of all, most kids love, boys and girls do love going to like the office supply store. They really do. Like new school supplies are kind of fun. So if you need to help your kid make a system, honestly, after school one day, go get a Slurpee at Target or wherever and say, hey, let's get some new supplies because I have to organize the kitchen because stuff's all over the drawers. Let's get you some supplies to organize the papers on your desk. Pick anything you want. It will be money well spent. Like my daughter likes the turquoise poppin' stuff. It's expensive, but I'm like, it lasts all the way through. So she gets the little paper tray and the matching pens and the matching markers and whatever it is. And you don't have to just do that at the beginning of the school year. If you start to see systems falling apart, like the dining room table crazy or the kitchen crazy or whatever, treat them to some school supplies to help get them organized and, new notebooks or whatever it is to kind of like beef it up. My daughter totally benefited from a new backpack. I was sort of shocked that we hadn't done that before, but it was so full of like so much gunk at the bottom and we'd cleaned it out and I'd already run it through the machine once and it really wasn't in great shape. I'm like, do you want to just get a new backpack? She's like, well, I kind of want this fancy one. I'm like, I don't care what it is. Let's get the fancy one. It's a backpack. If it makes you feel good and helps keep you organized, let's do it. So, those are ways to kind of help them manage too. And it sort of feels like they're getting a little bit of a treat in the process. And it's a treat to help create a system.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting a new organized, calendar for me. I get excited
Absolutely.
about it. That
Love.
works well for those of you that have kids that don't want to shower, that don't want to wear deodorant. Like taking them and letting
Yes.
them. I remember my son pick out their special, body wash that they like.
Totally.
That really gets them. That encourages them. So
Yeah.
just
When
on
you
a
have
side note.
that axe smell in the car for like, I don't know if that's still a thing, but like we used to carpool with this other family and they had two boys just a couple years ahead of my two boys. And we would get in the car and the minute they got in the car, the whole car just had that smell. And my boys were like, oh, what flavor is it? Like they wanted it too. So, that started.
That's my son's. My son's is Axe. I think maybe it's still Axe.
I don't know. It's probably something different now. We're dating ourselves, but yeah, whatever it takes in the journey.
Okay, we went over this a little bit, but I think that it's good to go over it again because I know so many of you are struggling with this. My grandson is 13 years old and suffers from depression and ADHD. We schedule work sessions, but he frequently does not have the needed notebook. I'm so relating to you, just so you know, and says he cannot recall what was taught in school. What systems can I develop to help him? And he is 13.
Yeah. So my first thing is when you say the word depression, I'm hoping that he has good therapy. That's part of it. That's a professional therapist, and if he is on some kind of medication, obviously a psychiatrist as well to be sure that that's the right dosage and being monitored as they're growing and their bodies are changing and their weight is changing and all those kinds of things. To me, first step would be, if it hasn't been made, would be to visit the support counselor at your son's or your grandson's school. Maybe that's done by you, maybe that's done by their parent, or maybe you can offer their parent if you're trying, I don't know if you're raising your grandson or if you're advising your son or daughter-in-law or daughter on parenting, but saying like, could I go in with you to meet with them so that we can get on the same page with the school? Because I think you can learn a lot from the people who have eyes on your kid all day, if they're checked out, if they're showing up on time, if they are turning in assignments, and make sure that they know that your grandson needs, extra support, that there's like an open line of communication. And I find those, people in those professions, that's their job and they are receptive. In terms of, support in coming home from school, First of all, I would ask the school, what do you recommend I do to support my grandson so that I can help close the loop and partner with you here? And my husband and I have had this a bunch through the years with our kids where there's a disconnect between what we're hearing from our child and maybe what we're hearing from the school. And then we're wondering like, well, what can we be doing? And so closing that circle and closing that loop, which does just mean like finding the adult on the school campus that you can partner with. And I always find partner is the best word to use with schools, because it's not like you're accusing the school of you're not doing this or you're not doing that, or you're saying bad things about my kid, but I'm not seeing that. Or sometimes they see totally different things than what you're seeing at home, right? Because your kid can turn it on at school and then they get home and they're out of steam. They're safe in their home. And so they can sort of let it all out and, let it all go, because it's hard work for them to kind of go and be people every day, surrounded by other kids and other noises and other distractions and stressors. And, they didn't sleep well, or they didn't eat enough at lunch, or whatever the things are that are going on in their own individual days. It's hard to be a tween and a teen. We know that. So the kinds of things I think you can do first are to partner with the school, and then to maybe create, yes, some home systems. And I think we've talked about a good amount of them today. Saying like, can I help you make a calendar together? Or can we go get something to write it down, and it's something with lots of pockets for each subject that we can label together and have it be like a project that you're doing together. And some kids, my best friend, when I go visit her house, she has Post-its everywhere for her boys. On the front door, don't forget your jacket. On the back door, don't forget the car keys. On the refrigerator, don't forget your lunch inside. And her kids have some learning challenges and some forgiveness. So she has created a system, and I sort of laugh. I like go over to her house. I'm like, oh my God. She's like, it's changed everything for me, because I don't have to say it. The Post-it's right there. And if it starts to peel off or come down, I just put a new color up, or I put another one up, or I can add to it. And she asks her boys to also create Post-its, like, Mom, I need whatever. I'm out of toothpaste, or Mom, can you pick me up at whatever? And so that's become a great system for them of communicating. I think it's finding the system. So, and it's as easy as asking the teenager, or if they're just kind of lost, like, let's go to the office supply store together, or let's go on this website together, or let's create a plan together, and letting them know, like, I just want to support you in whatever way I can. And Sheryl, maybe you can add more to this too, as your, mother experiences. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I like everything that you said, and I just want to say to Diane, you're doing such a good job to support him, and she's gotten him a counselor, a psychiatrist, medication. So I just want to say he's so lucky to have you, and you're in it, and when we're in it, it's
Yep,
still hard because it's such a process. So
it
just
is.
for doing so many good things, and he's 13. I mean, oh my gosh, it's like the prefrontal cortex is disconnected. There's so many things that are happening developmentally, puberty. I mean, it's like a
Right.
perfect storm.
Yeah.
And I wanted to recommend Dr. Noreen Russell's book, Before, During, and After the Diagnosis, where she talks all about ADHD. And Diane, follow up with me, because I can send you a link, because it's a great book to help you through this process when you have an ADHD kid. And I don't know about his mom and all of that, but very good book to read to help you through this process as you're supporting him, or his mom supporting him as well. And then I was just curious, does he have an IEP? I had one of my ADHD kids had an IEP, the other one had a 504. And that really helped my daughter, who had the IEP, because she was going and checking in with this counselor, because I believe him that he cannot recall what was taught in school. So there were things that she could do, like record something, right? Or other ways that they can help, because they all process information differently. And so if he's not remembering it, what will help him? And
Right.
Sometimes they provide, the notes for your kid when they have
Or
an
an audio version. Yep.
audio
Yep.
or the notes from the class. Is he getting those? Because sometimes they'll have an IEP or a 504, but then there's nobody that's helping them to get those notes. The teacher is overwhelmed. They might forget to give them to him. So those are just some things that I would think about, and helping him think about what will help him to
Yeah.
remember. Because I was an ADHD kid. I lost stuff all the time. And it might just be like a sticky note I could put on my locker saying, don't forget your assignment notebook, or writing
Yeah.
on the hand, can you write it on your hand to remember this? Because it really is difficult, because you get so distracted and caught up, and then you can have anxiety on top of it. And like you said, the depression piece. So usually there's dual diagnoses with the ADHD. So those are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just put in the chat also just my websites, my Instagram link, my Facebook link. And what I want to say is this group, honestly, I mean, I can't encourage you guys enough to stick with Sheryl. It is so important to feel not alone in this journey. And right now, the Surgeon General is telling us that we are an at-risk group, just like our teens are, parents are. And if you have not read the Surgeon General's report that came out about less than 2 months ago called Parents Under Pressure, it's a 29-page report. It is really comprehensive, really self-explanatory, incredibly, in my opinion, in some ways like uplifting, because it provides data that tells us, the adults, that we are not alone in this, and that there are action steps, including the one you're taking today, which is finding a support group, finding a platform, finding other like-minded parents that you can be vulnerable, that you can share information with, that you can gain information from. And understand that we're all kind of doing our best amidst a world that is very complicated and very chaotic. And, the news cycle, of course, is really challenging and difficult. And so what I would just kind of say is take a look at that report, because it's reminding you to ask of your schools for more parent education offered, which I speak at schools all over, and I love doing that. I'm sure Sheryl does too, but I present, everywhere that I can to try to reach larger audiences. But schools and businesses need to invest in support for parents, in parental leave at times, in mental health support also for their employees. You need sometimes to really be, outspoken and ask for those kinds of things. And the Surgeon General report, I think I pulled up, hold on, it's in front of me. Some of the kind of results that I call this in my opinion, but the idea, so basically some of their data is basically saying that, something has to change for parents. And, with the way our world is, this report's reported that 41% of parents and caregivers say that they are, quote, so stressed they cannot function most days. And nearly 50% say their stress completely overwhelms them. Wow. And over the last decade, parents have been consistently more likely to report experiencing high levels of stress compared to other adults. And 33% of parents report high levels of stress in the past month, compared to 20% of other adults. And so they just have this data that they, surveyed thousands and thousands of parents. And some of the solutions are things you guys are already doing, which are building your village, finding parents just ahead of you or with more experience than you that have gone through similar experiences that can share their wisdom and the solutions and the ideas of they've come out the other side of this. Creating social connection for yourself provides ways to reduce stress, not just connection virtually, but honestly, the old school, like at a coffee shop or meeting for a book group or on a park bench. If you have younger kids pushing strollers, whatever it might be, finding social connection. And sometimes it's helpful to not find social connection just from your own school community, but through your church or through your community center or through your gym or through, another, parental support group, parent education. Seeking out mental health support for yourself, whether it's through therapy, group therapy, face-to-face therapy, or online therapy. I find that therapy is so illuminating and can teach you so much more about yourself than even your own partner and your closest friends can. Although girlfriends groups are incredible, cheap forms of therapy. Asking your business or school about like mental health support that they provide. And then self-care, which isn't just the bubble bath and the walk and, taking a girls trip, but is really, finding out kind of for yourself, what's the best way, you can take care of yourself and ask for help when you need it. So anyway, I just think that, our world is telling us that, we need help. And chapter 2 of the Parent Compass is called Looking Backward in Order to Look Forward. And it requires you to take like a deep dive self-examination into what are your own biases? What was your educational background? How did your parents parent you? And how can you reconcile those with the way you're parenting the next generation? And until you kind of answer those questions for yourself, it's very hard to be a good parent to your own kids. So it was this it's an important chapter. So I don't mean to be like pushing the Parent Compass, but anyone who hasn't read it, I think it's a really helpful tool that goes hand in hand with helping our kids with study skills, which is one piece of it, and helping our kids with time management, which is a piece of it. So
yeah, thank you. So important. And that's why we're here, both of us, but that's why Moms of Tweens and Teens is here too, because we need that extra support. Like all the information is great, but we also need each other. And it's hard at this age to feel safe to talk about our struggles and challenges because people are going to judge us. And so I love bringing this community get together because you're from all over. And the moms always say, I love that I'm part of the inner circle in this community because I know I'm not going to be judged because you're not living in my neighborhood and you're also in the same boat as me, struggling with similar challenges. And we're able to talk about it and have that compassion and that support and that, just that, ongoing me too, and you're not alone as we learn and we grow. So,
yeah. And just to answer one other quick question, the parent may have logged off, but someone asked about test prep and about standardized testing, which is, always out there and kind of concerning. Schools offer PSATs and STAR testing and certain things that your kids are, already in the, tunnel for, or the pipeline. But what I was going to say is, so many colleges have gone test optional. That happened during COVID, and many haven't gone back. So if your kid is not a test taker, there are thousands of colleges they can apply to that don't require you to send any test scores. That being said, if your child is determined or, wants to still do the ACT or the SAT and approach these tests, there's all sorts of extra support out there. I just recommend kind of any test prep. It could be through your school. It could be through a big, test prep company. If your child's self-motivated, it could be just through test prep books. But some kind of test prep does help with the discipline piece. It just is someone else saying, take a practice test today. Here's some practice questions. Let's go over them together. Khan Academy has a lot of free support in that area. But then obviously like Stanley Kaplan, Princeton Review, like all sorts of test taking companies. I think most of them are just the same. It's kind of like the DMV. You have to take take practice tests in order to pass your driver's test. You have to take practice tests in order to kind of feel confident going into these standardized tests. And some kids take the test multiple times. Some kids take it once and one and done. And some kids even take it multiple times and don't even end up using their scores because ultimately they're not happy with their scores. So it can become a huge time sucker for our kids. And I would say the best way to start is have your kids take one free practice test on the ACT, one free practice test on the SAT, see which test they liked better or came easier to them. And then probably that's the one they should approach. And there are, distinct differences. Unfortunately, many of these tests went online this year. So they're even different. They're not just fill in the bubble old school, like on a Scantron. They're do it on a computer screen and they bring their laptops in. And I can tell you there's lots of pluses and minuses to that. Cause now if you answer a question correctly, it sends you to another, different type of questions. Like there's this other weird scaffolding that's kind of going on. So I think it's complicated and overwhelming. And what I would say is sign them up for some kind of prep program that just guides them through it, that you have to be no part of. If indeed they're going to approach taking these tests, and your school will be able to also provide, there's definitely going to be programs that partner with your school, and many of them also are free if it's through your school system. So there's nothing that's just as good as ones that you pay a lot of money for, because it's just the discipline of taking the practice tests, going over the right questions, going over the wrong questions, seeing where your kid gets tripped up, how do they eliminate answers, whatever it might be. And so that would be my answer to the person asking about standardized tests.
Yeah. Gosh. I know we're at time, and I just want us all to take a deep breath because I'm thinking, wow, it can be so stressful, can't it? As I think about tests and all of that. And Cynthia, it's been so, I call you Cindy, but yeah, but it's been so helpful. And yes, to the mom that was asking, this is recorded. She wants her husband to watch it. So it is being recorded. You will all get this recording. Please share it with other moms that you feel like could benefit. I'll put in all the information about the links to Cynthia's book.
Please come over and follow me too. Please follow me and join me in my journey to save parents too.
Yeah, follow her and reach out to me if you're really underwater with your kid and you need extra support. I would love to connect you with our community. There's so much support for you. So any final parting words?
You said breathe. That's a really good one. And I would say, be brave. Be brave. It's hard. All the things we're asking of parents in this generation, are hard things, and it takes a village, and it takes belief in yourself and support. And believe me, we make mistakes too. So don't beat yourself up for making mistakes. And I always say it's okay to apologize to our kids and say, we're sorry, we screwed up too, and we're not perfect. And we're just trying to be the best that we can be for them. And we're trying to do better. And I really feel that has brought me the closest to my kids when they've sort of seen me struggling and trying my best. And my daughter, when I dropped her off today because she had late start, and she goes, I said, oh, I'm doing a study skills time management thing today. And she goes, oh yeah. She goes, none of that works for me. And I'm like, oh, great. That's just great. And so I said, well, hopefully it'll help other people. And she goes, no, I'm just kidding. Some of it works for me. She goes, but I have a different style than you. I'm like, I know. And so that's what we have to also know. Our kids have different styles than we do. And we have to trust them and believe them. And we have to be brave. We have to find our village. And we have to breathe and know that we too will get through all of this. And hopefully at the back end, our kids will still love us and we'll have a good relationship with them. Because I think that's the goal in all of this, is that we maintain that relationship. We help them preserve their mental health and our own mental health. And we are just human beings all doing our best in a crazy and complicated world.
Yes, absolutely. What a beautiful way to end, right? Yeah. So, and I saw a couple more questions. Email me, and I will also share them with Cindy, and
we'll answer them in your newsletter if you want.
Answer them later. I saw Marissa, I think, said something. So
I love you, Sheryl.
Yeah, love you too. And thank you again for being with us. And you'll all get all the information, the study tips that Cynthia gives, those printables, and we'll give you all the good information.
Yes. Yeah, the printables are good. And you can share the printables with your kids because they're just like top 10 study tips and top 10 time management tips. And we talked about some of them today, but not all of them. And then if you want to get the books to supplement, you can order them on Amazon, or you can message me and I can sign a little personalized copy and pop it in the mail to you. So reach out if the books interest you.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for coming. It just speaks volumes about the kind of mom caregivers you are. So we so appreciate being with you. And It was actually fun, right? Right. Saying, I'm feeling lighter. So that's what we want. I hope you will feel encouraged. So, all right, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.